like to welcome back Maátisák and also our two presenters for the first afternoon session.
Okay, welcome back. How was lunch? Awesome, awesome. Okay, so on the stage we have here Mr. Cavalheiro, and Mr. Cavalheiro is
you can call me Marcelo.
Marcelo, okay, is the regional administrator of Telecare's adults and older adults community programs in Los Angeles. He also oversees Telecare's community outpatient AB 109 in Los Angeles Community Corrections Partnership, serving individuals recently released from prison. He's originally from Brazil, where he was a licensed child psychologist and worked in various public settings. In 1990, he came to the United States, where he received his master's in counseling psychology. He has presented at many state and national conferences covering various topics, including forensic recovery, identity narratives, and Latino cultural and immigrant issues. Welcome.
Thank you.
And next to my right here is Minister Jimmy Speed. He is local in Sacramento. And Minister Speed is the founder of the Christian Restoration Ministry, which includes a 12-step faith-based spiritual fitness program to enable men and women to transform their lives. In the field of recovery and as a community activist, Minister Jimmy Speed is regarded as a leader and authority. He's the author of the 2012 book entitled A Declaration to the Spiritual Soldier. So we want to welcome Minister Jimmy Speed. Okay, I want to pose my first question to Mr. Cavalheiro. I was very impressed to hear about the success you're having with your AB 109 clients. What are you doing?
Well, there's a few secret sauces that we use.
Okay.
I'll disclose a couple of them. One major secret sauce is that 100% of the staff are people in recovery. Every single male staff have been in prison themselves. So that's one secret sauce. And I want to talk a little bit about why that, what that makes the program so successful. And the second part is that the environment that we develop, which is a welcoming culture. Most of men and women come out of prison, they go to an AB 109 program, and they walk into a mental health clinic in Los Angeles. The first thing they're going to see is not going to be a person, it's going to be a metal detector. So you're in prison, people don't trust you in prison, you don't trust people, and then when you come to get services, the first message is that we don't trust you, brother, you must be loaded. But before, hopefully I have more opportunity to talk more about the secret sauces, but I know Jim and I are supposed to talk about the community-based practice, but and I'm not a doctor, I didn't do research, but I want to just throw, since you're having some sweet desserts, I want to make things a little more bitter than, hopefully don't go out drinking after we're done here. But I just want to, just a couple of things, throw out more data for you over there. Let's say instead of, let's say if Jimmy, me, and Chris, the guy, there's Chris back there, he's doing the microphone. Hey, Chris. So Chris, me, I'm Latino, and Jimmy, during break, we went downstairs and walked around smoking a joint. So Chris, me, and Jim, I don't think Jim was going to go for that, but the three of us go and smoke a joint around the block. Jim will have 37% chance of being arrested. Wow. I will have a 17% chances of being arrested. And you, Chris, only 6%, man.
Wow.
So go for it. No, just kidding. Just want to throw that one out there. Other thing I would like to say is that, and this is going to, please don't beat me up in the parking lot after this one. We talk about the for-profit prisons and how the correctional system is making money on producing, the 15 bottom of the, because of the economy, the bottom 50% of the population just fell off, Instead of killing them, we're putting them in prison. But, so one thing I'll say with cautions for the providers in the room, substance abuse providers and drug and mental health providers, is that let's say during lunch, instead of chicken and salad, they actually serve as a plate of drugs. Let's say there's 100 people here in this room, okay? And instead of lunch, they gave us, 2 lines of cocaine, 2 lines of methamphetamine, 2 lines of heroin, a shot of tequila, and 2 lines of meth. Oh, and a cigarette, right? So we all do all of that. We did all those drugs just now. 100 people here. 8 people, only 8 out of the 100 will become addicted to methamphetamines. 33 out of the 100 will become addicted to cigarettes. 25 out of the 100 will become addicted to heroin. 15 out of the 100 will become addicted to alcohol. And only 5 out of the 100 will become addicted to cocaine. Now, we substance abuse providers and mental health providers are quickly talking about the stigmatization that men and women suffer from going to prison and have that, the beginning of an identity. Maybe they're a punk rocker, maybe they're a Muslim kid, maybe they're a gay kid. And then we strip that identity and put that identity of felon on them. And then they come out, and my caution to you is that as you trip that stigma out, don't replace it with another one. Bipolar, schizophrenic, addict. Because the Drug Alliance of California has these T-shirts that say, "Nice people do drugs." If this conference, I'm from Brazil. If this conference was in Brazil, we'll be serving beer. We'll be serving beer right now. We'll all be drinking beer right now. So in this country, it's very quickly for us to, I used to work with a guy. I used to run a crisis center in San Diego. He ran another crisis center in another part of town. And someone would come in and say, "I drink a beer a day," alcohol dependence. And every day when he came home, he drank 2-3 beers. It was not a problem for him. So that. Second thing I want to say is the war on drugs is basically a race war, but it's also a class war. And the whites are getting there. It just took a little longer. The war on drugs started right around here. I don't know where the Chinese man came to build the railroads. It was around here? So the Chinese came to build the railroads for California. The American dream becomes true for the Chinese man. But the white man thought, they're taking our jobs. You can't hate them for taking our jobs, but you can hate them for smoking opium. So the first drug to be criminalized was opium. So you can throw a Chinese man into prison. Move forward to 1938. Mexicans coming across the border to work here, taking white man's job. Can't hate Mexicans for taking white man's job, although you're hating them right now. But they smoke pot. So 1938, marijuana becomes illegal. Move forward to 1980s. Depression in the South. Black men moved to the big cities. Crack cocaine, coke. There was more white college kids smoking crack than black men. But black men come from the South, started taking the white man's job. Can't hate them for doing that. Throw them in prison. So yeah, it's been racial so now, but now it's something else is happening. Methamphetamines. White, poor, living in trailer homes. Gay men.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's getting to your home. So Michelle Alexander said something about this. She says that about the Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman trial. Try to understand the juror mind, why they freed George black youth is seen as a problem, not as a kid with a problem. Just like we in mental health tend to call you schizophrenic, we don't see you as a person with schizophrenia. We see you as a schizophrenic. We see you as the illness itself. Now, I don't know, I like heavy metal music, okay? I can relate to you if you a guy who likes heavy metal music and has schizophrenia. I cannot relate to you if you are schizophrenic. So if you see the black man as the problem itself, we're not going to be able to relate to them. I'm sure everybody knew what is the English word for the Zimmerman guy that you go around and you play cop in your neighborhood? What's that? Vigilante. Well, it's actually a Portuguese word as well. you all know a vigilante. You all know what is the thing, neighborhood watch thing, that people do. You all know someone like that. So they could look at Zimmerman and see, I know someone like that. I can identify with that guy. They look at pictures of Trayvon smoking pot and all that. That's a problem. I can identify with the problem. So that's one thing. So who wrote about this? It's called the slow motion Holocaust. It's actually a Lincoln historian that wrote about this. The slow motion Holocaust is what did it with the Chinese, what they're doing, and it goes by steps. First, like they did with the Jews before Hitler in the Weimar Republic. You first see there's a problem. You got to find a scapegoat. All right, Jews are doing pretty well, with the business. It's their fault. Or right now, immigrants like myself. Oh, it's the immigrants. They're crossing the border and taking our jobs, marrying our women, and so forth. I had to throw that out there. So the first thing you ID a group is the blacks, is the Jews, is the gays. Then you ostracize them. You put them in ghettos. They're bad people. They're lazy. They're drug users. Then you confiscate them. Confiscate their belongings. Stop and frisk. Then you warehouse them. You concentrate, put them away. Like they did with the Japanese, like they did with the Jews, like they're doing with the black man right now. Concentrate them. And then the only step missing right now is the final one, the annihilation. The Jews, they just put them in gas chambers. With blacks and with, it pretty much is just by denying health care, so they would just die in that way. So we're just one step short of the slow motion Holocaust. And if you're white out there, it's coming to your neighborhood. I'm sure the first time, your gay uncle goes to prison because of methamphetamine, or your poor cousin that lives in a trailer park goes to prison, then it's going to start to like, whoa, now I know that guy. So, oh man, that hits me. Einstein said that the problem with Nazi Germany was not the Nazis. It was the majority white that didn't care. So, in terms of power and race, what's her name? Elizabeth McIntosh has this funny experiment she did. She writes about the invisible privileges that white people have. She has this Band-Aid experience, and you can do that. If you go to a foreign country, do this, please. Walk out of the airport, go straight to the pharmacy, ask for a skin color Band-Aid. Put that skin color Band-Aid in your skin. I'm pink, by the way. I'm half Native American. I hope he came back. He didn't. I'm half Native American, half German. So I'm like pink, half red skin and half white. If I put that, I'll be a little bit too pink for that. But if you put that here, I'm sure as close you are to the color skin Band-Aid, more power you have in that place. As far your skin is from the color skin Band-Aid, less power you have.
Interesting.
So this is just kind of, but do you want me to tell you more secret? So one secret sauce is that in order to see the power differential, you have to be powerless. The powerless is the one that can see the difference. You cannot ask a fish to describe water. You ask Dory to ask Nemo. Dory goes to Nemo and say, "Hey Nemo, tell me about water." Nemo's gonna go like, "I don't know." You take Nemo out of the water, all Nemo's going to talk about is water.
Got it.
Is the ex-felons that know, and Jim will talk a little bit, and you'll be amazed by his story, is the people with mental illness that know how the power is being taken away from them. In Florida, for every 5 black men, 1 cannot vote because they're ex-felons. So one secret sauce is to actually have the powerless among you as you create policies. I wish there was, maybe Jim will talk about, but I wish there was more people, ex-felons right there watching me right now. I wish you hire more ex-felons. And I know it's hard. I mean, I just got an email from my HR department saying that, this guy you just hired, he's an ex-felon. I wrote it back. Yeah, I know. That's the reason I hired him. So that's one secret. I'll tell more secrets later if you ask more questions.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I do have another question for you. Can you tell us about all the work you're doing in the recovery community around mapping, helping prisoners redefine themselves, exploring identity, where you have them look at what is my story? What is my values, my identity, my strengths, my resilience? Now, the piece that is most interesting to me is identity explored and identity changed, where they can graphically see where they were at one time and then later see how they transformed within just a few months. So can you talk to us about
that's
that?
another secret sauce. Okay, I'll give it to you and that's it. So in 1930s, there was a married couple, the Gluecks, at the Harvard Law University, 1930s. They were very good researchers, and they went to Liverpool, which is a somewhat small, like Sacramento, Liverpool in England. All the crooks, all the kids that were in trouble with the law, they all knew each other. It was kind of like an underground kind of scene. Everybody knew each other. So they go to Liverpool in 1930s, and they do these long narrative studies with juvenile delinquents, people in their 16, 17, 18, And they did an amazing study. They published 1930s. Okay, they're probably dead by now. John Lobb, which is now Obama's director of Department of Justice something, Bureau of Justice something. John Lobb in 1980s and his partner Sampson. John got the Gluecks gig at the Harvard Law, the same office, and on the attic there was all the Gluecks research. So he tapped into the Gluecks research from 1930s in Liverpool. And he goes back to Liverpool 50 years later and interviewed the same guys. It's called the Liverpool Desistance Study, LDS. Now Latter-day Saints, it's Liverpool Desistance Study. So he goes back to Liverpool with Sampson and interviewed the same men, mostly men. And he finds out that 1/3 of men and women come out of prison, that's true in the United States, go back to prison within the first month. The second third goes back within a year or 2 years. So about 50% recidivism in 1 year. By the way, my program has 20% recidivism. And that's one, I'll tell you one of the reasons. So now all the studies up to Martinson, 1974, what works, it's been about the 2/3 that go back to prison. What you should not do so you don't go back to prison. Nobody stopped and looked at the 1/3 that didn't go back to prison. What happened to those guys? So now they're studying these guys. They're old men now. They're old gizzards, right? They're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And he's interviewed all of them, and he can't find any difference between them, except that the men that did not go back to prison, they went straight. By the way, nobody goes straight. It's just like the road to recovery of mental illness, the road to the desist of a crime is very bumpy. So they don't go straight, they go curve. Slowly they do less crime and less serious crime. But the men and women that were able to stay out of prison, the only difference is that they were able to retroactive change meanings of past life events and build a foreseeable future. For example, I always thought that I grew up in a gated community. I thought my community was very nice. There was a gate around, all the buildings look alike, and we were happy and all that. So when me and my wife were buying a house in Culver City, she wanted to drive around to see any bad things around. So and then we passed by this place, and I thought in my mind, oh, another gated community, just like the one I grew up. Wow, how cool. And she said, oh, crap, the projects. At that moment, my whole life changed retroactively. I thought I grew up in a gated community. I actually grew up in the projects. Because in Brazil, projects is middle class. If you're poor, you're in a slum, So my classmates that grew up in plywood houses, they're the poor. I grew up in a gated community. All the buildings look like, but there was a gate around, right? Or a woman that is raped and is talking to their therapist about being a victim of rape, and somehow in their story, there's a turning point where they're now a survivor of rape. It's the same rape, same woman, same perpetrator, same pain. Nothing changed. The only thing that changed is that she was able to retroactively change the meaning of a past event, and now she has a foreseeable future. So you interview these guys that build a new future. They will say stuff like, I had to be a drug addict, so now I can be a drug and alcohol counselor. By the way, in 1990, I was a psychologist in Brazil. In August of 1990, I was a psychologist in Brazil. In September of 1990, I was a legal alien dishwasher at Sizzler in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
And I would tell to the other dishwashers, I'm really a child psychologist. And they say, yeah, right.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you in just a minute. I'd like to ask you, Minister Spee, Culture, addiction, and a spiritual recovery journey. What exactly does that mean? What does it mean to you? And how does it relate to this population?
For me, I have to use my own experience. I'm not a theorist. I'm not an intellectual. What I am is I'm a man that has had experiences. And my experiences awakened me to my truth. All the presenters are saying the same thing in a different voice. So I'm going to use my voice and say this. My culture is defined by the way I feel about myself and the way I think things should be. My neurosis is centered in my thinking. So as long as I'm in my thinking, things are not going to be the way that I think they should. So when you say culture, I was born in the Jim Crow area. Racism existed. I was used to racism. I didn't understand it, but I was used to racism. I chopped cotton every day. We lived on a farm. We had no electricity. I'm 50 years old. We had outhouses. That defined me, and I thought something was wrong. I didn't feel comfortable within myself. I am one of 10 siblings, 5 boys and 5 girls. The 5 girls are all educated, beautiful, property owners, normal and respectful in every way. The 5 boys, and I'm the shortest at 6'2" of 5 boys.
Wow.
From 6'2" to 6'9". All the boys went through what I would call insanity. What we're talking about. All the boys have been shot, with the exception of 1. Multiple years in prison and incarceration and stabbed and just going through brutality. Not that we were dumb, not that we were ignorant, not that we lacked intelligence, but I truly believe for myself, and I'm gonna speak for myself, I could not escape what I thought about myself. My disease was centered in my thinking. Of course, I believe in institutional racism. My wife can tell you every day. I'm on the blogs. I'm on the internet. I believe in social justice. I believe that racism will never be eradicated. And I'm not one of those people that tell you that it will never be because of what. I believe that human nature, people are duplicitous in the way they think, politically correct in the way they feel about things. So I'm here to tell you that culturally, I was never an American, ever. I didn't become an American until I became awakened. I was always anti-establishment because they were out to get me. I was arrested over 50 times. I was put in the back of a police car. I had never had a ticket without being a gun pulled on me, put on my knees, and sit on the curb. Even if I was just going to a football game and dressed in a white Nike suit, I had to sit on the curb. And I was not one to take that lightly. I protested. I've been tased, I've been beaten, I've been in race wars. So I'm here to tell you, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility, especially white America. You have a responsibility. If you can get mad at Mike Vick, then you can get mad at the social injustices that you hear today. I mean, it's common knowledge. So for me, cultural definition, I'm working with people that don't have hope. So I don't have time to theorize. I'm here to present a solution.
Okay. Minister Speed, you're well known and loved in Sacramento, both as a minister and as the voice of recovery. And you're a change agent. You're out there in the trenches. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do with people? Like, how do you work with this population?
One of the presenters, Dr. Cross, mentioned Malcolm being an archetype, which means he's a prototype to what has to happen to this population of people. And I present myself as that. I present myself as a strong man, a black man, who has completely recovered, who's had a complete psychic change, complete, and who's now able to go back and identify completely as I'm an influencer. I influence men and women to follow me, and I'm not a religious person, by the way. I want to make that clear. Religion is dead to me. I'm a spiritual person that practices spiritual principles. I work with people from all economic, political status. It doesn't matter. And so I also work in love, not from a capitalistic position. If money was my motivation, I wouldn't be here. So I work with these people by presenting myself. And I want to tell you guys, and my wife is here to bear witness, you can ask her on your own. I work tirelessly. I work endlessly. Money is not my motivation for working with these people. I believe that I'm a person with an answer. And I also believe that I'm one of few people on planet Earth that can go and say, if you do this, your life will change. I guarantee that.
So you work with a lot of people that are in recovery, that are recovering from drugs and alcohol, that are transitioning back into the community. And so what specifically, how do you work with them? What specifically do you do?
I build networks. I recently dropped off the simple things, some clothes to a woman's facility. And I went to a lot of women that I know and I said, give me some clothes, give me some shoes. Now this is basic, this is what I do. And I took those clothes and I said, I don't need any reward. They didn't know who I was. I want to drop this off. And I want to also come back and present some of these principles that I'm talking about. This is the minute level that I work on. I open my home up. And I present principles. I go to prisons. I go to mental insane asylums. Patton, I go there. I present myself as a person that has recovered from all of that. The last thing I remembered about myself before I recovered, before I awakened, I was walking down the street mumbling incoherently to myself. I'm that person that you see. And so my story is not to gain pity. I don't want your pity. I don't want you to feel bad. I had to go through what I had to go through to get to this position to sit here today. I'm here for a reason. And as the presenters were speaking, I said to myself, wow, I belong right here today because this is just another way.
Can you share a little bit? Do you mind sharing a little bit of your personal story with us?
First of all, I'm free from anything that I've ever done, anything that's ever happened to me. Completely. Like I said, I was born in Arkansas. So I'm not going to tell my whole story, but I was born in Arkansas, 5 boys, 5 girls, mom and dad. My mom and dad divorced. And it was at the divorce that I created a neurosis within myself. And it was at the divorce that I began to wonder what was wrong with me, why they didn't love me. I built that boomerang that would come back and haunt me. And I didn't take drugs and alcohol until I was 18 years old. I played football. I was a very angry child. Now, I do agree that there were some untreated issues. I was molested as a 5-year-old to 13-year-old by men and women. I was beaten with extension cords. So I come from broken people who raise broken people. So I'm one of those people that I can tell you that jails, institutions, and near deaths and homelessness that's all that you have when you're in that state of mind. I've never had any formal psychological counseling. I want to make that clear. Everything that happened to me happened as a result of what I went through. At the age of 18, I took a drink. And I really liked it. What it did was it medicated the neurosis and the disease state of mind and the emotional state that I had. It did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I loved it. And I drank a fifth of liquor the first time I ever drank. I want you guys to know that. I'm free from anything in my story, so if you feel bad about that, then that's your own problem. But I drank a fifth of liquor. And I want to let you know something. I drank like that for 20 years, probably a fifth of liquor or so every single day. I introduced drugs into my drinking career because it was a career. It was a 2-decade career. And I was homeless probably about 10 years of that time. I've been shot twice. I've been stabbed. I've hurt people. I was reprobated. I was hopeless. And I met a lot of people like myself out there. And today I'm sitting on this stage with men and women who have PhDs behind their name. But I'm going to let you know something. I got mine on the streets. So my story is this. 5 brothers, 3 had the same awakening as myself. They're my heroes today because I saw what they did. They taught me how to do what they were doing. And some of them are doing great things. I have a brother that's doing life in prison, and he's not an alcoholic or an addict, but he's a black man that had issues that were unresolved. We all went through that same environment. My sisters, I see them, and they're like, what happened to you guys? Because they didn't understand coming from a black man position. I can remember when I went back to school during this 14-year period, I got the salutatorian award. I was really striving for the valedictorians. I set a goal, and no matter what, I'm a no matter what type of person today. But when I got the salutatorian award, I went in the bathroom and I sank to the floor in agony, and I cried out. And that was the last time I ever felt sorry for myself. It was in 2001. I made a decision that day, if I was to be free, that what I would have to do is I would have to look at those things that are designed in a concerted effort against me, and I mean that. Sister talked about that. It's on purpose. And I would have to overcome those things. And I would have to use my internal strength. And of course, support and family. And that's what I began to do. And I created the Christian Restoration Ministry
That was my next question.
out of that. Because I saw that faith in a power greater than myself is all that I could rely on when it came down to it. At 7 months of physical sobriety, I had a son born 1 pound. He came home to me at 5 pounds, about 3 months. I had nobody to help me. I had burned my family's bridges, and I had not made them up yet. And so what I did was I did exactly what those people said. Most of them were white people. I did what they said do. I went to the doctors 4 times a week. I went to school during the day. I had some respite people come in and help me out. I did exactly what I followed directions. So I learned that if you follow directions, they'll lead you to an address, a specific place. And so what I do is I lead people to a specific place. And that specific address is a complete psychological change. And in order to do that, I have to confront the denial. We have to stop playing the victim game, and I'm talking about victims. I was a victim. I had been molested. My mother abandoned me. I was too black. I was too militant in a terroristic condition called America. I never thought that I would escape. I was hopeless. And so I saw that what I had been through, I had only one course of action, and that was to present it to men and women. And God gave me the wisdom to do it. I don't have intellect, I have wisdom, and I will outwork any man on this platform. Okay?
Okay. All right, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your 12-step faith-based program, but I want to open it up to talk with the both of you. So how can we all provide culturally relevant services to a population of African American and Latino men who have been granted early release from incarceration, are transitioning back into their communities? Some of these fellows have mental health, behavioral issues, addiction issues. What methods specifically can we use to help them turn their lives around?
I think one important thing would be to develop welcome cultures that they can come into it. And we have to be aware of the power differential that we just talked about. We have to be aware of our judgments. You know, I always joke with people, if sitting here was Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, would you guess who is the convicted felon? So you have to be...
Got it.
So non-judgmental, power-aware, respect and dignity. That is already the first intervention. So in our programs, yeah, people do, you know, DBT, CBT, LBT, all this stuff that you learn. And that's why I'm not too big on titles. I don't like much letters after my name. And with all due respect, I don't like to call people doctors. I like to call you William and Terry and, you know, and Jimmy. You know, I don't, you know, because I think even sitting up here, I feel kind of uncomfortable because I think this is our problem as providers. We are up here. And people come in and have all this, you know, Marcelo Cavalheiro, LSD, PhD, LSD. I went to the DSM-5 training. The guy's name was Jim Doe. I'm going to out him. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 letters. There was 12 letters after the guy's name. 12 letters, you know. So at the same level, meet people where they are. We are 100% field-based. People don't come to us. We actually go to them. And if they're under the 405 bridge, we go under the 405 bridge and meet with you. The psychiatrists go and meet with you under the 405 bridge. And you can be high and you can be drunk. We are there with you. We go all the way where you at. And this is, again, I think it's more than a race thing. And just one experience that I had, because I think I'm in the business of touch points. You know, it's little things. It's a handshake. It's an eye contact. So this guy comes out. My office is right in the beginning of the center. So, and we all, I mean, I'm dressed really well here. We all dress really badly. I have a lot of tattoos. My staff. I mean, if you walk into our office, you will not know who is the client, who is the. So someone walks in. This guy walk in. Okay, if you've been in a big house, you know that if you're black, you're gonna hang out with the black. If you Latino, and if you're white, you better get cozy with the white supremacists, otherwise you're gonna get killed. So this guy comes out, 20 years in prison. He has the spider webs, the white supremacist spider webs. The guy is, 6'2", 250. This guy is bigger than me in both ways. And he has a big-ass swastika tattoo in his head, right? He opens the door. I don't care about stuff like that. I mean, growing up in Brazil, we have very poor physical boundaries. We just get people's face and hug people and kiss people, So I go straight into his face. I got it right this close to his face. I look at him in the eye. I shake his hand. I smile and I say, "Welcome, brother." He starts to get tearful. And then the team lead, who spent 20 years in prison for attempted murder, 10 years homeless in USC, he jokes with psychiatrists. Psychiatrist spent 10 years studying upstairs, and he said, "I got my PhD just down the street on the corner panhandling, so we got the same degree." So he takes the guy to his room. By dying, the guy's bawling, crying. And then I go after, the assessment. I say, "Man, what did I do? Did I do something wrong?" And he said, "No, you shake his hand." In 20 years in prison, nobody ever shake his hand. It's been 3 years he's out, 3 days he's out. Nobody ever shake his hand. You're the first person that look at his eyes and shake his hand. Took me 15 seconds to shake this guy's hand. That was my touch point to him. That could have been his turning point. So you never know when the other person's turning point is going to be. If you're able to provide respect, dignity, non-judgmental care, then you'll be just giving, I say I do drive-by touch points. I just go in and then just a quick joke, the Facebook thing that I hear. This guy goes out on a date with a girl, right? And he keeps saying hi to everybody, to the waitress, to everybody. And then after 2 days, the girl says, "Okay, dude, this is getting a little tired. Why you acknowledge everybody?" And he say, "I read somewhere, and this is true, that 100% of people that try to commit suicide and survive, that if it's one person, the day they try to commit suicide, had acknowledged them, shake their hand, say hi to them, they would not try suicide." So the guy says to the girl, "I'm just saving lives, honey."
So I pose the same question to you.
Send them to the appropriate places. I can remember being in school, and I would share my thoughts, and the teacher would strike it down. And I told him, "You might have some problems." And I went to the deans 3 times, and I realized that he was blocked from my ethnicity. He didn't understand the way that I was approaching the classroom. I got straight A's. I got the 3rd highest GPA. I went to school every day. I was raising my child. But all he saw was a big black guy. And he kept shutting me down. So when the brother stood up and said, "You didn't invite me out," I understood that. There are men who have gangbanged, but there are men who have overcome that, who are able to talk the talk and walk the walk. They've been there. They have the intellect and they have the wisdom. So send them to the appropriate places. I know that you don't have to eat the donut to know it's sweet. But for me, I work with a population that's hopeless. So I go to them. I don't expect them to come to me. And I don't expect them to be, I meet them where they're at. And I meet them on the level that they're at. So business, I'm not a businessman. The business is just to give veracity to what I do. So I meet these people where they're at, and I take them to certain places. I refer them to places I know they'll be more comfortable in. So.
Thank you. Okay, here's another question. Do each of you have any methods that have not worked so that the audience members can avoid some of those pitfalls that maybe you might have experienced in working with other people?
I personally wouldn't know of a method that doesn't work. If a person wants something and they have the right tools, they're going to get something from that. At its basis level, I use psychological approaches. I use confrontational approaches. If your mom died, I'll be there to pick you up and take you to Denny's and sit there with you, and I might even find someone to go back with you. So as far as not working, I believe that everything is included. I mean, in my life, I've had many failures in my recovery, but they were absolutely necessary for me to grow from. I've needed everything. I needed every drink. I needed every defeat. So for me, I don't look at that as if it's something that I could sit up here and present or quantify.
Thank you.
It's kind of ironic, the question, what works, because so I was talking about the forensic, the experience in forensics, and by the way, until the 18th century, we only incarcerated or put in dungeons enemies of the state, like Jesus Christ, Marquis de Sade, it's pretty much if you committed treason, how do you say treason?
Treason.
You would be put in prison. If you commit a crime, you would get killed, your hand got chopped off, you got hanged, So I started as enemies of the state. So what does it work? So there's this guy, 1974, Martinson. He's the first guy that decided to look at all the forensic work that has been done up to that point. And his name of this book is actually What Works? ? And Martinson, after he read everything without deficit-based stuff, he couldn't figure out what works. So at the end, he still posed the question, I don't know what works. It doesn't seem like nothing works. And then, until today, many mental health agencies follow the Martinson thing of nothing works. Just lock these people up and throw away the key. So I think I was a psychologist, I was a therapist, and I was in that mentality of trying medical model stuff and until I came to light and with the recovery and with this stuff that we're doing right now, anything that I was doing was not working. So all this stuff that I'm talking about is stuff that we found out by men and women like Jimmy who actually lived the life. And their experience and my personal, I was the drug dealer at the projects. I left my parents' house when I was 13 years old. I lived by selling drugs until I was 17. And there was 4 of us, I was the only white guy. The other 3 guys are dead. They all die in prison. I'm the only one that survived. Wow. So I call myself the false positive. I shouldn't be here talking to you guys. I should be in prison in Brazil right now. So it's the experience. So all the stuff that we're talking about, is the experience of the people that live the life. They inform the practices that we need to go. Right? The practices that we are doing has to be informed by people like Jimmy. People that live the life. And in mental health, it's the same thing. Pat Diggers, which is someone that got locked up in a mental hospital for many years, and the psychiatrist told her, when you get discharged, just go home, take it easy, don't get a job, don't go to school, it's schizophrenia, there's no cure. And she's like, screw that. She went to college, she got her degree, she became a psychologist. And she said that there was one guy, an orderly, which I still don't understand what an orderly is, but there was an orderly at the mental hospital that was the one that kind of had hope for her. And she said, someone talked about hope before. Our job, a lot of these people don't have any more hope. They're hopeless. Our job is to hold the hope for them until they can take it back. So I think that's your job out there. You got to hold the hope for some of these folks, and they will take it back. I mean, we are some examples here of people that someone hold the hope for us. We're able to take it back.
Awesome, thank you. Now I'm going to open it up to the floor for question and answers. So if you could quickly make your way to these microphones here, and whoever gets there first gets to talk first.
Everyone not at once.
Yeah.
I'm looking for Chris. Did he go smoke
This
that
is the
joint?
after lunch head.
Yeah, we're all trying to be awake, right?
Right.
So my question is, I think that reentry is a lifelong process, and I think it's great what you guys are talking about in the community, but what do you think we can do before people are released to get this conversation started? To get them thinking about their own reentry before they actually come to the community.
Excellent question.
we can go into the institution and we can present ourselves as agents of change. And that's what we do. I mean, we're doing it as we speak. And I've seen success. I've seen more success than failure. And it is a life journey. But there is a thing that happens to a man. And I think that that's what they need to know, that you can have a change. And I come from a spiritual state. It's the spirit that I speak about, and that runs along the emotional lines. I believe I stopped growing at 5. And so by the time I started drinking, I was emotionally bankrupt. So I go in there knowing that these people are emotionally or spiritually bankrupt, and they have developed such a mental neurosis that it is basically, they're hopeless. They're institutionalized. They're comfortable with that. They can't differentiate the true from the false. Their life is normal to them. And I present to them a person that has went through that. And I have to be free from all of that stuff in me in order to do that. And I think a lot of providers are not free from that either. They have stigmas. They look at this person. They judge this person. Alcoholism was a disease that didn't have a cure back in the 30s and the 20s. You have to understand that. They were institutionalizing these people and shocking their brains and doing all that. Now it's fashionable to be an alcoholic. So,
And I wanted to actually speak to Minister Speed. You, along with Deacon Paul, have gone into some of these transitional places and carried that message of hope. Yes?
yes,
Can you speak to that?
I see men who need hope. They're looking for hope. And so I go in and I tell them my story. I don't tell them what to do. I don't tell them how they have to do it. I present myself as a solution. I am the solution. God is the solution, but I'm his agent. And I say, if you want what I have and are willing to do what I do, then come on and let's do it. And I go back to those institutions, and I go back again, and I go back again, and I go back again. And I'll go back for a full year until they're released. And when they're released, I meet them. And then I take them over here to their transitional homes, and I go there, and I meet them, and I sit down, and I present the principles that I've outlined in the way that I do. So that's what I do. I go into the solution, I go into their lives, and I show them exactly how they can recover. And some do and some don't. It's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to present myself and do exactly what I do.
I think it's to make go in and make power visible, because someone might have the power to decide if they're going to pick up the crack pipe or not, but they might not have the power to go back to their wife and kids because they're restraining order against them and they're going to go back in prison. So it's not just about power advocacy, but it's also about to make power visible. Because in this society, everybody wants to feel powerful. We all like powerful. I mean, look at the culture of celebrities, you know. The Kardashians, whoever those women are, I don't get it. Do they sing? Do they dance? What do they do? You know, like, so everybody wants a little bit of power, and everybody deserves power. Now, if I cannot get power, if you take all my power away from me, you tell me what time I have to wake up, what time I have to take a shower, what I have to eat, I'm gonna go back to the most primitive, bogus power. I can beat the shit out of you. That's why there's so many violence in prisons and locked facilities, you know, because all the power is taken away. So you got one power, and then what is one thing when you come out and you're powerless? By the way, in LA, when you come out of prison, they drop you a Skid Row with $200. Sometimes, like in the middle of the night.
Wow.
I mean, within a block, someone's going to offer you how to invest that 200. So make power visible to people, because one thing that you can do if you're powerless that will give you that powerful feeling for a half an hour, you know, drink a beer, smoke a bowl, little crack, you're going to feel power. It's bogus power, but you feel it. Everybody wants it. So let's move people from bogus power to real power. And by doing that, it's showing that you got power here. Yeah, here we don't got power. But here you got it. You choose.
I'd like to piggyback on what he said. All power and control is an illusion anyway. So when I'm dealing with hopeless and powerless people, I help them. I confront them. Institutionalization, yes. my parents did this. I mean, some tragic stories. But that's not the problem. The problem is what you're doing to yourself. So I get them to see that. That's accountability. The other stuff, yeah, we can do that later. But right now, how do I stop drinking and using? How do I deal with the fact that before I put the drugs or the alcohol in my body, I make a conscious and sober decision when I'm in jail. When I'm in prison, I make a conscious decision, sober, to put that in. That's a mental state. That's from an internal situation. So I help them to move past what happened to me and my external conditions, the ghetto, my education, because none of that is really real. I'm autodidactic. I have a bachelor's degree and I graduated from a substance abuse program. But that's not who I am. It doesn't define me in any kind of way. So when I see a person that has 5 felonies, and they're like, I'm hopeless, man, there's no hope for me. I'm like, dude, there's hope for you. Here's how. And I put them around people who have felons, who are businessmen, who have felons, who's in who's who. They have business and organizations, and they get together so that they can come to believe. They need to come to believe. And I think that's the difference between an organization that's just taking an intake and an organization that's truly making a change at the initial intake there. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go on to the mic.
Was a heavy dessert? That's why everybody's. I can't see it. What
You've
was it? Chocolate?
hypnotized them.
Hi, so my name is Kelly Winter, and I'm from San Francisco. I'm part of the Reentry Division. And just listening to you guys talk about, ways to instill hope in people. So something that we've begun in San Francisco, it's a collaboration between adult probation and the Sheriff's Department. And so basically we identify folks, it's called the Reentry Pod, and it's actually the 1-year birthday today of the Reentry Pod. And it's located in County Jail number 2, and basically we identify folks that are coming out of county jail at the moment, eventually people that will be coming home from state prison on PRCS. And we identify these folks and we bring them into the Reentry Pod about 30 to 120 days before they're finished their sentence. And we work with them, and we have case managers, we have classes ranging from anger management to computer training to art class to getting their GED, high school diploma. And so I think in terms of giving people hope, that's really like a first start, because we're bringing in resources, before we expect them to reenter. We're working with them to come up with reentry plans that will help them to be successful. We're picking them up, at the door of the county jail when they're getting released, and we're walking them over to a new community assessment and services center that was built also within the last year to really see through this continuity of services, and again to sort of lead them the entire time by having this the support of probation or the support of case managers or the support of providers. And so I think I guess I just wanted to share that, because that's sort of the road that we're going down, at least in San Francisco.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody.
Good
I
afternoon.
have a question for Minister Speed. We understand that this is a 12-step recovery program, a 12-step resurrection program, but can that 12-step program help someone who don't have a drug and alcohol problem? That went through all the channels, but don't have a drug and alcohol problem?
From my perspective, there's over 205 different 12-step programs. And what most people don't know is that I'm sitting here from a perspective that the people that I'm working with are devastated. They're devastated. But I also work with people that have never did drugs and alcohol at all. So that's a good question, but for me, I'm talking about devastated, hopeless people. I'm talking about people that you have to have an understanding of who I'm talking about. People for whom society has thrown away. People who, it's easy to sit here and say, hey, we're gonna get you in to do this, we're gonna get you to, well, I'm talking about people that are hopeless. They have no way out. And their chances of recidivism is great. So yeah, there were 203 programs, 205 different 12-step programs. The 12 steps is simply a path. It's an emotional path with mental accountability, examining myself, seeing where my self-esteem is affected based on what you're doing. I wrote a script for myself at the age of 5. And that script I used until I was 35 years old. And the landscape, the script was a map, and the landscapes had changed. And I was still forcing that script in my life. And when it didn't work, I became alcoholic because conditions would not change to meet me. You have to understand that I understand these people because I'm telling, this is my truth. So I look at my self-esteem, the way I see myself, my pride, the way that I think that you see me, the way I think you see me, because I wrote a script for everybody based on how I think they should see me, whether negative or positive. My personal relationships, my deep-seated belief systems about what I think about the roles between men and women and mothers and fathers, this is what affected me. So I'm coming out of that now to a degree where I can give that to other people and help them walk down that path. Those are strategies that I use. But yeah, there are hundreds of 12-step programs that are designed to help people who never did drugs and alcohol. Everybody in this room could probably use a program of some sort, if we got honest. If we got honest.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Regina Mason, and I work in the field of child welfare. And I also am a co-founder of this agency called the Village Project. And what I am finding in the systems that exist for AB 109 in my county is that the people at the table are people from the same systems that never worked in the first place. And so the funding is not filtering down into the grassroots community and to grassroots organizations that can really impact a change for people that they care about and that they're compassionate about. And so my question for you is, do you have any recommendations in terms of having a seat at the table where the funding is, and how do grassroots people come to the table so that we can really see positive changes for the people that we care so deeply about that are coming back into their communities? One of the things that's happening is a lot of the kids that we work with are fatherless, and their fathers and relatives and loved ones are in prison. And so I hear workers say, he's an ex-con. Well, yes, he's an ex-con, if that's the way you want to look at him, but he's also someone's father, someone's brother, someone's sister. And so, I just see right now when the money is coming down to these counties, the right people are not at the table. So can you give me some recommendations in terms of how grassroots folks can have money coming into their organizations?
Excellent question.
What you did just now, it's one way to get that, to get you on the table. And I think other folks too. I mean, in Los Angeles County, you know that the majority of people that recover from drugs and alcohol never enter a drug and alcohol program. The majority of people that are in the road to recover from mental illness never met a mental health professional. The Los Angeles County consumers have a joke about that. They say, they say nothing about us without us. So that's how their motto in terms of getting into the, not just like blast what professionals, decide, but be at the table at the beginning as you develop and design in these programs. But the consumers in Los Angeles, they joke and they say, we recover despite mental health treatment. And the reality is that some of this, there is what is called the iatrogenic effect of treatment. Is that iatrogenic is when you get an illness from treatment, So if you go into the hospital for a knee surgery and you walk out with an infection, or, so I think there is an illness that you get from mental health treatment, which is disability. We take power over people's lives. We make decisions for them because we are risk avert. We don't want to, for the best intentions, we don't want them to screw it up, so we make the decisions for them. And then 10, 20 years later, they cannot make a simple decision as find a place to live because we turn them into disability. We mental health professionals are the biggest disability industry that is. So if we just kind of lay off, like in a forest fire, when a forest goes into a fire, now the folks realize that the best thing is just put a caution tape around and let it burn, and then naturally the sprouts will come out. And we have this idea that, we step in to see a little sprout, we step in to help, and then we realize we step in a bunch of sprouts in the way as you do that. So it's for us to kind of not be the driver of this. Now, on the recovery journey, we can help you on the journey. We will not, like let's say recovery is Japan, and you're going from here to Japan. Our goal as providers is not get you to Japan, it's to get you moving towards that direction. And who knows, you might get to Thailand and like Thailand better.
Thank you. I don't know that we have time for one more question. I don't think we do. Okay, so I apologize, but I just want to say thank you again to our two panelists here.
Thank you.
And for all our panelists.